In this video, we're going to talk about setting our computer up so that it is more of a desktop computer like we're used to with Windows 7 and previous versions. Okay, so we're going to jump right into that. We're going to go from here, which is where you end up when you log in on your start screen. Let's go to the desktop. I've already done a little bit of modification on this screen, but not very much. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is when we get into Windows, when we log in, we want to come to our desktop. Now, remember, I'm talking about a regular desktop user that wants to use Windows 8 this way. If you don't want to use Windows 8 this way, then of course, you don't have to do this part. But what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the bottom here and then right click on the taskbar and click on Properties. Okay, so this opens up little window here. This just first part here is just about the regular taskbar, and you can set this as you normally would. Okay, so this is nothing's changed here. If you have dual screens, you can tell it which screen's a taskbar on and so on. But what we want to do is go to navigation here. Okay, we're going to come down to here where it says Start Screen. When I sign in or close all apps on a screen, go to the desktop instead of Start. So by clicking that, we're going to boot right into the desktop view. Okay, I'm going to stop here for now. Let's click OK. We're going to come back to this in a minute. So what's going to happen now is when we boot our machine, we are going to end up in this view here. Now, if you move your mouse over to the far right hand side here, up in the right corner, you have what's called the charm bar. From here you can do a search, you can share something on that page, your start menu, devices and settings. So let's just go back to start for a minute. Okay, so this is how you get back and forth. You use that charm bar. So we go desktop here, gets us into the desktop, and the charm bar over here gets us back in here. Okay, now what I want to show you here is that on the start menu, these are what are pre-pinned on here. This is not by any means all of the apps that are installed on here. If you go down here and you click on this little arrow, this gives you a view of all the apps that are now installed on this computer. And they're showing right now by category. So you see we have category books and reference, and then we have the appropriate apps under there. Okay, so now when we go across here, we can see all of the apps that are installed on here. Okay, so the reason I'm showing you that is, let's go back to the desktop now, is that when you click on the start button, see the start button's returned here. If this is Windows 8.1 we're talking about now, Windows 8 took this away. Windows 8.1 brought it back. But it isn't what you might expect. When you click on this, it brings you back here. Okay, so the idea behind this is that so that you can see your apps. But what we want to do, let's go back to the desktop here. Now another thing, we have hot corners. So when I point up here, we can see our open apps. When we point over here, we bring up our charm bar. When we point over at the bottom left, it brings up the start screen. Actually, not on, there it is. It brings up the start button. Okay, so let's go back to this corner. Let's head back to the desktop. And let's go back into the taskbar and properties. Let's go back to navigation now. Now, the reason I wanted to show you that first was so that you understand what it means when show the apps view automatically when I go to start. What that's going to do is it's going to bring up that second screen I showed you when you push the arrow button down. Okay, so that gives you a view of all your apps, which makes more sense when you're coming in from the start menu because you want to see all your apps, not just what you have pinned there, especially if you're only going to be using the desktop functionality. Okay, so now let's just go back up here for a minute. You can show the desktop background on the start menu. Right now I have it set black here and it's set blue on the other side. I haven't modified it at all yet. But if you want to have a unified experience across, you can do that here. And show start on display, I'm using when I press the Windows logo key. So you can set that if you want. And then down here, you can list desktop apps first if you're viewing, if they're sorted by category. So let's click that. And let's click OK. All right, so now let's go down and click the Start button. And you'll see now we're coming in to our apps by category. Okay, so that makes a lot more sense when you're coming in from the Start button so that you can see all your apps. So let's go back again. Let's go back into Properties again. Bring this back up here. Okay, now let's go back to Navigation. And you'll see here, search everywhere instead of just my apps when I search from the apps view. Okay, so what that means is that when I do a search, it's going to be unified search. Okay, let's just close this for a sec. So if I go over here and I go to search, it's going to search everywhere. So in other words, if I search on Skype, it will search my apps and then it will search the web. Okay, so let's just do that. Let's go Skype. Okay, so it's just got my apps there. Okay, so it's now bringing up the results here. As you see, it's brought up results from the web here, from Bing. Okay, so that's what unified search is. It will search everywhere. It starts with your apps and then it will search elsewhere. This is a big improvement over the original Windows 8 because you had to pick where you wanted to search all the time, which was not very intuitive. Okay, now as you saw there, when I go into hot corners, I can just move down a little bit with my mouse here, and then I can see all of my open apps and I can switch between them here. Okay, so let's go back to the Start button again. And you'll see here that we have it sorted by category, and then we see our desktop apps first. And that was the choice that we selected when we were in the taskbar here, when we are in Properties, and then when we're in Navigation, down here, we list this desktop apps first in the apps view when it's sorted by category. But another useful thing you can do is when you go into the Start menu here, is you can change the order in which they're sorted. Now, a way I like to do it is to have it by most used. Now, this is going to bring up the things, of course, that you use the most, and that makes the most sense when you're coming in here looking for something to run. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to sort this. So now if we go back to the desktop and then we come back in again, you'll see that it is keeping the order of sorting by the most used. Okay, so that's up to you how you want to sort it. You can do by name if that's easier for you, and of course by install date. So if you just installed something you're having trouble finding it, you could do this and it'll show you the ones that are most recently installed. Okay, so I usually set this by most used, and then I can easily find the things that I use the most, and of course those are the ones that we're going to want to navigate to the most. Now the other thing about the Start button was that the old Start button on previous systems used to be able to get in the control panel and computer and all kinds of other functions on there. Whereas this one, when you click it, it's just taking you into your apps, which was one of the functions of the old Start button. However, if you put your mouse on top of it and right click, you get a lot more functions. So from here, you can do your shutdown and sign out and sleep, your run, search. There's your file explorer, control panel, task manager, command prompt, your computer management, disk management, network connections, device manager system, event viewer, power options, mobility center, and programs and features. So as you can see, you can do a lot of the same things that you could do in the previous Start button just by right clicking here. Okay, so that gives you the basics. Now, when you log in, you're going to be able to go directly to the desktop. You're going to be able to set your start button so that you can find your programs the way you want to find them. And then you can switch between your apps like I'm showing you here using the hot corners. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to talk a bit about an alternative way that you can put a regular start button on your computer.